Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank my colleague from California. I know he is sincere about permitting reform, and I appreciate that very much. But let's face it, the past 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration has been nothing short of a disaster for broadband deployment and expansion through America, and it's because of the permitting process. Permitting delays have resulted in halting the construction of broadband infrastructure, even in my own district of Georgia, in the 1st Congressional District. Take, for instance, the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forest Service, frequently exceeding the 270-day deadline for reviewing broadband permitting requests on federal lands. You know, there was a study, and listen to this now, a study conducted by the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that about half of the permitting requests processed by the Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service exceeded the 270-day deadline, and that both agencies currently lack a method of alerting staff appropriately when the deadline is approaching. Mr. Spellmeyer, let me ask you, how do these lengthy reviews and delays impact Americans' access to reliable and high-speed internet?
Well, as I said earlier, Congressman, I've talked to providers just last night who were telling me 3 years is a regular time to sit around and wait for some of this stuff to move through. I was thinking, we all live with shot clocks. I got a shot clock in front of me right now. You've got one in front of you. We have deadlines every year. I got to file on April 15th. We just need, that alone would make a huge difference.
You know, you mentioned, I believe, in your opening statement, my legislation, the American Broadband Deployment Act, that will streamline the broadband permitting processes. And that's a bill that focuses on standardizing regulations and expediting federal and local approvals and improving coordination among agencies by cutting red tape. And if we do this, these reforms will result in accelerating broadband deployment, particularly in rural areas. I'm a former mayor. I will tell you, it's also the locals that sometimes hold this up, and we need to address that as well. But it obviously supports economic growth. Mr. Donovan, how would this legislation, the American Broadband Deployment Act, how would it impact your members and the industry's efforts?
You're increasing certainty for the operators as they're going through the process, that they know that if they get to the end of it, there will be a decision. You can proceed with your build, or here's what you need to fix. But you're not sitting in limbo forever waiting. Like, as my colleague said, when the shot clock goes off, you need somebody to blow the whistle to make sure that's enforced.
Mr. Spellmeyer?
Yeah, and certainty encourages investment, and uncertainty discourages investment, and that's what we're
we've just had a
about.
change in administration. I've had so many companies come into my office, and they want the same thing. We need certainty. We need to understand. We need to know what the future. In order to invest, we've got to know what the future holds and what's going to be there and what's not going to be there. And I was in business for 32 years, and I will tell you, without certainty, it's difficult to make business decisions. I think that's what we're up against.
As Mr. Hale said earlier, he's depreciating his investments over 15, 18, 20, 30 years, and it's the same thing for my members. And it's really dangerous to ask providers to make commitments without that certainty.
If we were to have this permitting reform bill that enacted that we're talking about here, how soon would organizations like your members be able to start serving rural communities that are in need of broadband?
I am confident we could do that by September 1st of this
Mr.
year.
Donovan?
Just to add on to that, the timing of these reviews actually matters a whole lot in a lot of rural America, especially out west. There's places where you can't start the review until a certain amount of the snow is gone from the ground. It takes time to process the time, and by the time you get the permit, you may be past your build window, and you can't get back out to those sites until the next summer. And so that's where the sequencing of this really matters if you want to make it from an exercise of going through the permitting to an exercise of deploying broadband.
Mr. Chairman, I would submit to you that as many people come into our office, and I don't care what sector of our economy you're talking about, whether you're talking about technology, whether you're talking about healthcare, whether you're talking about energy, it's all the same. Permitting, regulations, crushing us. It needs to be reformed. And I hope that we can get this bill passed so that we can have some reform here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll yield back.